All right, Ronan MMA, welcome back to the channel. Sergei Pavlovich versus Curtis Blades has been made official for April 22nd. It is a UFC fight night. I'm going to give my overall reaction and early prediction on this fight, how I think it will go, and what this fight could potentially mean for either gentleman. But before we get into all that, I would greatly appreciate it if you would like and subscribe. I will thank you in advance because I'm Canadian, eh? And don't be one of the 80% of people that watch my videos and don't subscribe, because that would just be rude. And also, who wants to be like everybody else, dude? Don't you want to be one of the top 20% of people? One of the cool people who don't not do the thing that they've already been thanked for? Men and women, by the way, because now we've got a small female audience happening here, which is cool because it's not as much of a sausage fest. But yeah, so let's get into it, okay? Sergei Pavlovich versus Curtis Blades. My God, man, I got an itchy face, dude. This is a great fight with huge stakes at heavyweight. This could potentially be the next guy in line to fight for the title, depending on how the fight with John Jones and Cyril Gane goes. It's an interesting one. This is literally like the cliche striker versus grappler matchup, and I know that we saw Curtis Blades show us some striking skills in his last fight, but to be fair, that only comes at the threat of his takedown, which is fine. That doesn't, that's not to discredit his striking, right? Because it is MMA, and you mix in your martial arts, as Michael Bisping would say, even though we already know what MMA stands for. And you can set traps or make people think you're going to do one thing, but then do the other. And Curtis Blades versus, what was it, Dawkins, dude, made him look like an absolute fool, which is okay. And then he also, but Sergei Pavlovich has different kind of power, dude. I've heard people say, on the internet, where certain types of people exist, that he's like the new white Francis Ngannou. And now I don't think he's got the one-shot power of a Francis Ngannou, but I think that his boxing is much better compared to Francis. He's got way crisper combinations, whereas Francis, he would talk like he's made major improvements and he's going to come out and show us and all this jazz. And while we saw it a little bit in the Stipe fight, he was even still swinging a little wild in that fight. But like the Jairzinho Rozenstruik fight, man, that was a horrible display of grappling. Yet he still got the knockout because he only needs to land one. Whereas when we saw what Sergei Pavlovich did to Derek Lewis and Tai Tuivasa and guys like that, it is like crisp boxing combinations, and every punch he lands hurts you. It may not put you Alistair Overeem unconscious, but it hurts you to the point where you're not going to recover. He's going to keep hitting you, and that's a wrap. Now, the problem with this is, for Sergei Pavlovich, is that he's got a little bit of a kryptonite, right? Not necessarily, but he's only got one loss on his record, and it comes to Alistair Overeem in 2018. Now, Alistair Overeem retired or at least left the UFC in 2021. We saw towards the end of his career him implement a completely different game plan than the one that he entered the UFC with. When he came into the UFC, he was piecing dudes up on the feet, fucking them up every which way, when he was still the Ubereem, dude. At one point, this guy was like as big as Brock Lesnar, which is insane because nobody thinks that to be the case. Everybody thinks Brock Lesnar is the biggest, most freakiest heavyweight that's ever existed. Go look at a picture of them facing off at the weigh-ins. It's incredible. And then Alistair Overeem fucked him up to the body with I think it was a round kick from a southpaw stance, or maybe it was even a teep kick, but dude, he hurt him bad. And that's kind of what Alistair, he's got that crane kick KO of, was it Arlovsky? I can't remember off the top of my head, but where he broke his toe on the guy's chin, right? So he came in and was devastating guys on the feet, and then I think he realized, my chin's not necessarily what it once was, especially after USADA rolled around, because while USADA doesn't necessarily try to catch people cheating, if you're not good enough at doping and you don't know how to kind of work your way around the system, you will get caught and you'll just be a casualty of war. And that's that. But if your name's John Jones, then everything's okay and we can just give you your shit back. So whatever. But, towards the end of Alistair's career, he started implementing a more grappling-heavy game plan, and we also saw him shying away from strikes, which was really strange to see from an elite professional kickboxer before he entered his MMA career. The way that he would turn his back and kind of literally like run away from shots was fucking a little concerning. But in 2018, it was one of his only 2 fights. He fought Sergei Pavlovich, and he got landed on a couple times. He also landed some good shots on Sergei Pavlovich, which actually looked like it appeared to have rocked him, which then initiated a bit of a clinch scenario. Alistair Overeem then took him down and smashed him out on the ground with, ground and pound, elbows, punches, all of it. So got the TKO finish. And I know that MMA algebra doesn't work, but Curtis Blades fucked up Alistair Overeem pretty good on the mat. And the way that I look at it is like, if Alistair Overeem can take you down, keep you down, in fairness, he was hurt prior, and was landing good shots on the feet, which I don't think Curtis Blades will be able to do against Sergei Pavlovich unless he establishes the threat of a takedown before he starts trying to work in his own striking. If Alistair Overeem can do that to you, Curtis Blades can certainly do that to you. Now, lucky for Sergei this is weird, man. They both kind of have the kryptonite that is one another. So it's going to be like who is able to implement their shit first, essentially, because while Curtis Blades is a great grappler, and he looks great and is able to take down, control, and beat up most guys. Now, he's been criticized for not really doing a whole lot of damage down there. Like, his fight with Volkov was, like, could put you to sleep, If you've got trouble sleeping, insomnia or whatever, you just watch that fight, you'll fall right to sleep. He's got guys like Sergei Pavlovich are his kryptonite. So, Derek Lewis cannot grapple worth shit. He is one of the worst fucking grapplers I've ever seen, and I'm not trying to shit on Derek Lewis because I like him a lot. But other than the, 1 or 2 extremely athletic, explosive, zero technique involved whatsoever, just literal stand-ups that he does, he has no idea what to do when someone's on top of him. His butt is flat to the mat. His feet are flat to the mat. Like, the bottoms of his feet are flat to the mat. He's not using them to push off, trying to get it. Nothing. He does nothing. And it's very frustrating to watch. But Derek Lewis knocked Curtis Blades the fuck out. He hit him with one perfectly timed shot when Curtis Blades obviously shot in for a double leg from pretty far out, too. That's the problem. So we see Derek Lewis get fucking ragdolled and manhandled by Sergei Spivak. Sergei Spivak initiates the grappling way differently. He uses more throws and shit from the clinch, whereas Curtis Blades wants to shoot doubles on you. And Derek Lewis was able to time that perfectly, land one shot, and put him dead. Made him dead. And then he somehow came back to life. And then there's another time, too, that it happened against a guy who can't grapple very much. And I can't fucking think about... Oh, Francis Ngannou. How did I forget? Francis Ngannou times 2. Now, in fairness, those are his only 3 losses. However, I think Tom Aspinall would have beat him had that injury not occurred. That was a very unfortunate event, but it's not Curtis Blades' fault. So, it is what it is. But you look at the only 2 guys that he's lost against, both by KO, both have little to no grappling skills, and I know that we saw Ngannou maybe sort of improve his grappling a little bit against Cyril Gane, but I think that was more the poor decision-making of Cyril Gane. I think that was also the size of Francis Ngannou, because if I'm being brutally honest, he did not do much. He kind of just got on top and laid there. And there's an argument for round 5 going to Cyril Gane. The MMA Guru just did a video on that, and it is good. I have been saying very casually for the last, little while that I think Cyril Gane probably should have won that fight, but I wouldn't call it a robbery. I have yet to watch his video on it, but he, I would imagine, is making the same argument that I am, that round 5, based on effective grappling, which we know is not laying on top of someone, it is advancing positions and attacking submissions and all the rest, that Cyril Gane going for that heel hook while seemed to be a poor decision at the time, may have been the only real effective grappling that went on during that round. And then, of course, on the feet before it got to the ground, he was winning. But if Curtis Blades thinks that he's going to stand with Sergei Pavlovich, he will be sadly mistaken. And also what I could see, now I would imagine since that Alistair Overeem loss came 5 years ago, half a decade ago, that Sergei Pavlovich has been working on his grappling, or at least I would hope so. If Curtis Blades shoots for a double, does anybody, dude, they kind of get called like the Travis Brown elbows, right? Shots like that. A lot of guys do them, but the first guy to kind of really do them effectively and actually fucking knock someone out with it, at least in the UFC or modern times UFC, was Travis Brown, who is a big motherfucker, but didn't have the best of careers. That's okay. I could see Sergei Pavlovich's shots, even like that, little short shots in tight like this kind of shit, hurting Curtis Blades to an extreme degree. Or I could see him timing an uppercut even more perfectly than Derek Lewis did. Because he is a much crisper, cleaner, better boxer than Derek Lewis, without doubt, 100%. His combinations are very crisp and clean for a big heavyweight. And he comes out like a fucking marauder. That may be his downfall in this fight. If he comes out there the way that he came out against Tai Tuivasa, the way that he came out against Derek Lewis, Curtis Blades could shoot a double immediately. The thing is that he doesn't really overextend himself, but this is a very interesting fight. Very interesting. Oftentimes I say I don't like the striker versus grappler matchups, pardon me, because you only get to see one of their skill sets against the other guys, which is an opposite skill set. Whereas when you get Alex Pereira versus Israel Adesanya, you get to see the best kickboxing that you'll ever see in the UFC. And both of their skills get showcased, and you get to see who's got the better skills in that area. And the same sort of thing with grapplers. When you see like Bryce Mitchell against Charles Rosa, and you think that Charles Rosa is a legitimate black belt and is incredible off the ground, and then Bryce Mitchell just manhandles him. Or there's countless scenarios of that. Or you always wonder how well would Tony Ferguson do on the ground against Khabib, and then you see Charles Oliveira almost break his fucking arm. You know what I mean? Like, I tend to like watching guys that are more or less specialists at one thing fight guys that are more or less specialists at that same thing, because I think that it's a better showcase of their skills. But grappler versus striking matchups are also very intriguing, because you want to see who's more well-rounded. Has Sergei Pavlovich figured out that, how to defend takedowns, how to get up from takedowns? Will he be able to keep his range effectively to make Curtis Blades shoot a shot that he probably shouldn't be shooting from too far out, that is telegraphed, that he can time something on? Is Curtis Blades going to have improved his striking enough to the point where he can get in range so that he can shoot a safe shot on Sergei Pavlovich, get him down to the mat, and beat him up for 5 rounds or 3 rounds? I don't know how long the fight is. This is a very hard fight to make an early prediction on, in my opinion anyways. Some of you may be more confident, but if I had to guess right now, I would give Sergei Pavlovich the edge. I think he's got a lot of momentum behind him. I think that he's not worried about anything that anybody else is throwing his way. I think that Curtis Blades has shown us in the last couple fights that he's maybe not being too patient, and it's definitely more exciting to watch him try and stand with guys as opposed to him fucking laying on top of them for 5 rounds. But he's been trying to stand with dudes, and like I said, like Kyle Dawkins and Derek Lewis, even like he picked Derek Lewis apart, if I'm not mistaken, for the entire first round. I think it was round 2 that Derek Lewis KO'd him. It was round 2. So if he tries to do that with Sergei Pavlovich, that ain't gonna fly. Because while Derek Lewis was fine, standing around, not doing a thing for fucking 6.5 minutes, Sergei Pavlovich will not do the same thing. And it will make Curtis Blades have to shoot, and then we will see. But if I had to pick right now, and this is not a very, I'm not extremely confident that this will happen. If I had to give a percentage right now, I would say 55-45 in favor of Sergei Pavlovich. I would pick him by KO. I'm going to trust in him to have improved his grappling to a significant degree in about half of a decade, and definitely be able to fuck Curtis Blades up on the feet. He's got very, very, very good boxing capabilities, and yeah, he's also a fucking marauding savage who just wants to take your head off, and he's not gonna give you a second, dude. So Curtis Blades ain't gonna get no time to settle into the fight. It's gonna be immediate. The action will be immediate. It will just be whether or not the action is not action at all, and it's just Curtis Blades laying on top of him on the mat, or if Sergei Pavlovich is gonna fuck him up on the feet. So those are my thoughts, my reaction, my early prediction on this fight. Could potentially be a title eliminator. Who knows? They both have very impressive records, 17-1 and 17-3. But yeah, so that's my prediction, my reaction. Like I said, like and subscribe, please. I'll thank you in advance because I'm Canadian, so don't be the one of the 80%ers that don't do it. Be one of the 20%ers. Who wants to not do the thing you've already been thanked for, guys? Please. Love ya. You can watch all my stuff. Just click the one button, pretty please, and thank you. Okay. Bye-bye.